to day one, session one of our local candidate interviews on WFJA and WWGP radio, brought to you by Sandhills Broadcasting and Brick Capital Video. We're here in the studio at WFJA. I'm Matt Garrett, and I'm your host for today's North Carolina State Senate District 12 and also the North Carolina House District 51 candidate interviews. Before we start our first interview, I'd like to remind our listeners that today through Thursday, each afternoon, these interviews will air live on WFJA and WWGP, as well as stream on the WFJA website. Videos of the candidate interviews will post each evening on the WFJA website. Today, we begin our interviews with the North Carolina State Senate District 12 race. There are four candidates: Richard Chapman, Democrat, who will be running unopposed in the primary, and then David Buboltz, Jim Bergen, and Ernie Watson. All three are Republicans running against each other in the upcoming primary. We'll start today's session with Democrat Richard Chapman. Richard, welcome to WFJA and to our candidate interviews.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, then let's jump in and get going here.
Okay.
First of all, for folks out there that might not know anything at all about you, Richard, tell these folks who have tuned in a little bit about your background and any reasons you have for seeking election to the North Carolina Senate.
Well, that's a fabulous question. Why am I running for Senate? And it's a question that I intend to answer and will, but it's not necessarily the most important question. The most important question is, why am I running alone? There are 37,000 registered Democrats in Lee and Harnett County, which is Senate District 12, in addition to a slice of Sampson County. 37,000 registered Democrats. Why is there not a primary with 20 Democrats in it, 30 Democrats in it? There isn't a primary with any Democrats in it. There is only one, me. Where are all the Democrats?
Wow.
Why is it that no one has stepped forward? Being a state senator in North Carolina is an important job. It's not a small responsibility. We have a lot of people to represent. So why isn't it more competitive? I have some ideas about that I can share, but keep that in the back of your mind. This is a participatory democracy that we live in, and it's a representative democracy. It means that if you are represented, then you have a voice. If you're not represented because no one steps forward, you don't have a voice. If only the Republicans control the legislature or anything else, what's the difference between our country and China or Russia or some other authoritarian system that has only one party involved? I don't want that to come to pass in the United States or in North Carolina. So that's why I'm running. It's important to me to give voters a choice, an option, a different perspective. That's what I hope to be able to do. As to my background, I'm a retired newspaper journalist. I worked for some of the best newspapers in the United States. I had a wonderful career. I still believe in newspapers and still read them every day. I'm also a former classroom teacher. So I have a perspective on education and classrooms and teaching that I don't think most members of the legislature have. The fact that the legislature, that education is the biggest expenditure by the state and the biggest responsibility of the legislature, it makes it necessary for legislators to not just know about education, but to know education from inside and out. I think I do.
Just a curiosity question. What did you teach when you were in the classroom?
I taught at Metropolitan State College of Denver
Okay.
for 6 years. It was a primary teaching institution, and it was an institution that drew from experts in the field. And because of my experience as a print journalist, I taught journalism.
Mm.
Uh, I didn't do a whole lot of research. I did a lot of teaching. I was required to teach four courses per semester, and then I taught two in the summer. So I was always teaching. I always was standing in front of classes. And the average age of the students was anywhere from 18 to 26. So I had a huge variety of people in my classes, some who were full-time parents and uh, there to get their educations or to get a new start. But it really gave me insight as to how people learn and what a teacher needs in order to succeed.
Hmm. Well, let's start talking then about some of the issues that you would be facing if you are elected. Right now, North Carolina is in recovery mode still from COVID 19, like the rest of the country. What aspects of our economy do you think present the most challenges related to recovering from COVID 19? And how do you rate the job that our politicians have been doing in dealing with this recovery?
COVID has been horrible. It's been an experience that none of us will soon forget. And it's something that we have to continually learn from and continually benefit from. The economy and the way the society functions is related to the health of its people. If we're unhealthy, we can't have an economy that runs properly. If we are healthy, we can. It's as simple as that. What concerns me is that COVID fatigue is forcing people to ignore the necessity of continued regard for their health. Vaccinations are important. I've got all four. I'm happy I have all four. And if they ask me to get a fifth, I'll get that one too.
Me too. Me too.
Vaccinations are important. Masks are important. General health is important. Remember at the beginning of the COVID fiasco, they taught us how to wash our hands. A lot of people didn't know how to wash their hands, even though they were adults. So you can benefit from this kind of learning. But that's not what the state legislature needs to focus on right now. Yes, we need to make sure there is vaccines available, but the important thing is we have to prepare for long COVID. COVID is not like any other virus. It affects the human body in ways that we haven't yet discovered. And I'm concerned about people in the future having problems with their hearts, problems with other organs in their body simply because they had COVID.
Mm.
That's something that I think the state can prepare for by putting money aside to handle that.
Let's talk about another hot topic, political maps. It seems that the state is all the time redrawing the voting districts, and this is always a matter of great debate. What are your thoughts on where those maps have ended up now, and what does that mean for our area?
The map making is a complete embarrassment to the citizens of North Carolina. The state legislature has made it clear they are unqualified in order to properly draw district maps. They're either going to do it in unfair partisan ways or illegal racial ways. Either way, it's wrong. We need absolutely an independent, nonpartisan, professional commission to draw the maps on our behalf. Otherwise, the legislature is going to take advantage of it, and that's wrong. It was embarrassing that it had to go all the way to the Supreme Court in order to get decisions made, and that people fought the way they did. We shouldn't have to go through that. It should be a simple professional process. And I think that the trouble is that you can't have an independent commission unless the legislature agrees. And the legislature is not inclined to do that because it undermines their power. The only solution is to replace people who won't act with people who will act. and I will act in that regard.
Okay. Um, in addition to that, I want to give the opportunity to talk about any other issues that you think will be very important in this coming term in the Senate.
Well, there are a lot of them, starting with fundamental issues of the legislature to more specific ones. For example, let's start with the fact that the job is part time, but it's really a full time job. Being a state senator pays $14,000 a year plus a per diem. Well, that's not much money to raise a family on. So it means that state senators have to have a side gig, another business. Well, that's not who gets short shrift. If being a representative of the people of Lee and Harney counties is a full time job, and I believe it is, then and somebody has a business on the side, and that's a full time job, who's getting cut short? It's either the voters or the business owners or the business customers, and that's not right. I'm retired. I don't have a side gig. Um, I have a few pensions I've worked hard in order to earn and Social Security, and that's all I need. I can be a full time senator. I think that's crucial. In addition to that, we need term limits, as I've described. People talk about term limits, they say they're in favor of term limits, but they don't do anything about it. They keep returning politicians to their offices over and over and over again. Orrin Hatch, the U.S. Senator from Utah, just died after 42 years in the U.S. Senate. 42 years. That's incredible. Uh, State legislators are not the same, but we need to say enough is enough. Thank you for your service. It's time to turn the job over to somebody else. The trouble is that we can't get those term limits without the legislatures agreeing with them. And they're not going to do it because it's not in their interest, which is why we need voter initiative. Voter initiative, which is something that you have in 26 other states, gives citizens the right to bypass the legislature by coming up with an idea that they like, hammering out language, putting it on the ballot, having the citizens go to the polls, vote it up or down. If it's voted up, it becomes part of the law of the state or part of the Constitution. If it's rejected, it goes away. Very simple. The legislature can't nix it. We need voter initiative in this state, just like 26 other states that already have it, and it works great. That's another way that I think that citizens can have an impact, whereas the legislature is very often standing in their way. Another, in terms of specific issues, other than how government is structured, there's broadband internet service. Not broadband internet service is not available in every part of the county, and it needs to be. You can't be a sophisticated individual unless you can get online. We're also facing a water and sewer infrastructure crisis in the future because of the growth that we're experiencing. People who are coming to North Carolina to move in and to work at jobs, they provide impact on services, water and sewer in particular. We need to expand those plants and those facilities, and that's expensive. The state needs to be a partner with local jurisdictions in order to get that done. There's a million other things too. School funding is crucial. Uh, since 2011, the legislature has been cutting back on school funding, and the result is that we don't have teachers don't have the supplies that they need in schools, and the support personnel that's essential to schools, like guidance counselors and school nurses and school psychologists, simply aren't available. That's wrong. These kids deserve every service that we can make available to them that helps. And teachers need a good salary. We also need to help out with the local supplement problem. Wake County is more wealthy than Lee or Harnett County, so they can pay a supplement that's higher to teachers. What that means is that teachers come to Harnett and Lee County, get their experience, cut their teeth on teaching, and then they go to Wake County where they can get a $10,000 raise or more simply by driving a few miles across the border. That's not right. We need to even out local supplements.
Wow, that's a lot of issues.
That's a lot of topics.
You have obviously done your homework for this. Wow. Well, let me ask one question, and then I'm going to give you another opportunity. So maybe just a short answer on this one.
Okay.
Right now, employers in our area are struggling to fill positions ever since COVID-19. This is really true in the service industry. I think there's not a restaurant that doesn't have a hiring now sign out front. Do you think the legislature can help with this? Is it a legislative issue even, or is this just a local issue?
Well, I think it's both. The legislature can have an impact for sure. Internships work wonders in high schools, and private-public partnerships with companies are great ways of steering students into specific jobs. And that would include the public service aspect too, restaurants and other places like that. They have the need for interns as well because it's a complicated business. So I think that could work beautifully. And since the legislature is in charge of education, they would have a hand in it.
Okay. Richard, I can't believe it. We're already out of time. And you obviously have a lot more that you could share with us. But I just want to thank you for your time today, for coming over and going to the trouble to present your thoughts to the public. On behalf of the station here, we wish you the best in the upcoming election. And so I just want to give you a moment. If there's any closing comment that you would like to make, you've got about 30 seconds, 45 seconds.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry for droning along, but there's a lot of issues to talk about. One of which is tax cuts, corporate tax cuts. The corporate income tax is scheduled to be reduced to 0% in 2030. Right now, it's about half of what individuals have to pay. Why should corporations pay so little and individuals have to pay so much? The recent Supreme Court decisions said that corporations were essentially people. Well, if they're people, why aren't they paying the same the same income tax as the rest of us? That's only fair. We need to stop that slide down to 0% and make corporations pay their fair share.
Okay. Yeah, that was something I wasn't even thinking to ask you about. So I'm glad you had the opportunity to do that. Well, I just want to join Sandhills Broadcasting and Brick Capital Video in thanking Richard Chapman for talking with us today. In a few seconds here, we're going to take a short break. And when we return, we'll be talking with Republican candidate for State Senate, David Bubolz.